Hello, everyone. It's Drayton Boylston with the Executive Coaching University, and welcome to our webinar today. We're going to be talking about it can be a challenging subject. It's non-judging and not being judgmental around things for ourselves and for others. And we're going to talk about how to kind of work through that and understand it a little bit better. And I'm, as always, joined by my mindful partner, Ms. Jenna Forster. Jenna, thank you for being here today.
My pleasure. Hello, everybody. I hope everybody is doing well. We are entering into spring right now where I am, so everything is new and fresh. So it's an interesting time to take on this subject matter of non-judgmental. I agree with you, Drayton, in that it's a tricky subject, and judgment can be our ally. It can work in our benefit. We are judging at all times, every moment of every day. Yeah. And at times it is our ally, and at times it can be a definite deterrent in our leadership style. So I'm very happy to be talking about this today.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. As we've discussed, we keep these fairly short, so we'll get into the nitty-gritty very, very quickly. But it's, in the fundamentals of mindfulness, we've done the compassion, we've done the gratitude, and the third leg of the stool really is this whole showing up and not being judgmental about ourselves and about others. And it's one that I find in a lot of conversations I have with folks, it's the one that's not understood readily. And it's one that people have to put a little bit more work into, and that's why we've kind of saved it to the third webinar to get into this.
Yeah, and when we look at the basic definition in mindfulness, it is moving into the present moment non-judgmentally. And I think it can be a little bit of a hurdle for some when they're trying to incorporate more mindfulness, and they are either in a practice, a set practice, or just in moment to moment, which we advocate also. It doesn't always have to be sitting and being quiet. It's very, very valuable. If there are days where that cannot happen, it's about being present. And the reason this whole concept of non-judgment is brought into this is because when we spoke about in a couple of, I think it was gratitude, we were speaking about when we are coming from this place of automatic programming and the busy schedule and being pulled in a lot of directions, a lot of our ability to be aware goes down. Mm-hmm. And when our awareness drops, then our judgment actually increases. And the reason for that is because we gauge everything in our life as safe or unsafe. And that's really, really valuable when you're going to cross the street and you have to make a judgment call of how close is that vehicle coming to me, and do I have time to cross the street without getting hit? Judgment is our ally in that, is very, very valuable. Where judgment can also show up is when we have this need for control, or when we are interacting with an individual and we've formed a judgment on them, that will attach to how we interact with them in the future. So therefore, it closes us down to who we can be in the moment, rather than opening us up in a state of awareness.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I've had a challenge with, Jenna, around this whole subject is the internal piece of this. So the judging of myself. And in the Mindful Leader Workshop, we talk about we have 60,000 thoughts a day, and 95% of them are the same ones we had yesterday, and 71% of them are negative. And a lot of that is focused on judging ourselves in certain ways. And I think as drivers, as alphas, as people that really have succeeded in business, there is that tendency to always want more, and be very, very hard on yourself and judge yourself about performances and being competitive. And that's one of the things, as hopefully my level of awareness has increased, that I've gleaned in my thoughts are the ways that I judge myself. And I feel it's so important when we get our arms around that and we figure out that we can treat ourselves with more love and compassion, we're going to show up differently in the workplace and the world. And that's where we can harness this work that we do on ourselves first to be a better person and better leader as we go through our experiences.
And when we're coming at it and we're in a place of judgment or self-judgment, we are not seeing, we're not recognizing, we're not in a space to be able to do that. So as an individual, having judgments of ourselves is used readily because it keeps us, quote unquote, safe. So if I have a judgment of myself in some of my strengths versus some of my weaknesses, I will naturally be drawn to those things that I feel are my strengths. And the tricky part about that is a lot of that, this is safe, this is unsafe, it doesn't come from us. So it comes from our upbringing, it comes from our past experiences, or it comes from all of these things that we bring in like luggage, and then we take our cape out of our luggage and we wear it. And then we present ourselves in that manner. And judgment is our greatest ally in that, in keeping us in that place of, well, I'm good at this, I'm not good at this. Oh, you did that again. Look at what you're doing. Look at how you're behaving. And one of the keys to flipping judgment is whatever it is we are in the moment, it is neither good nor bad. As soon as we label it and we make it good or bad, we have now put it in a box. And it's a pretty little box, and it's probably got a lovely bow on it because we've done it so many times. However, we are then categorizing everything that we're doing, and we don't take the lid off. You know, all it takes is a lid off. I always say that one of the best words in the English language is and. I did this, and I am choosing to do this, and whatever it is. So just simply incorporating 3-letter word into our language can make a huge difference on those projections, because all of our experiences, they're embedded in us. They're in our nervous system. So we quite readily will go to those go-tos on whatever we think about ourselves, whatever we think about the people, whatever we think about the situation, and it holds us in the same place.
Yeah, and the status quo doesn't have any growth in it, as we know. And, you know, one of the things that really popped for me, Jenna, as you were talking about that, is that, you know, as leaders, we're very uncomfortable with vulnerability. And that's where the growth resides, especially with this type of subject. And we keep ourselves, as you said, in that safe place, and we keep our judgments in place because it is safe, and yet there's no growth there. And the same thing is around vulnerability, is there's a lot of courage we need to step up with in order to address these things and be vulnerable and share that with people and be transparent. And that's a really big part of this, is that as leaders, we have to show up in a really authentic, transparent way so people get it. And they see us as working on these things, so they feel more comfortable doing the same instead of just playing that safe game. And the other thing that popped for me is we talk about being an observer, right? We hover above our lives. When we go to this mindful place, we see things that we normally don't see. And we play this observer. And I think with this subject, when we hover above and we see we're making this snap decision and this judgment on someone or something, and we have that high level of awareness that, wow, yes, this is what's happening. I am in this situation. I'm maybe judging myself. I may be judging others, and I can see that. So I'm detached from it. I'm playing the observer, and now I see the choices I'm making in this moment. And that seats you right into the now.
It does. And with the word vulnerability, we can use it as a perfect example. So if I have a judgment that vulnerability is bad, I am going to act in a manner that takes me as far away from being vulnerable as possible.
Yes.
I'm going to do it in everything, everywhere.
Yeah.
If Vulnerability is neither good nor bad. It just is.
Yeah.
How does that switch us? And it actually does switch us mentally, because we just turned on the front part of our brain, which makes us conscious and logical and reasoning. In that one moment, if vulnerability is neither good nor bad, it just is, how does that affect how we then behave, how we then approach everything that we're doing? Then having the ripple effect, as you speak about, of allowing others to embrace that space.
It's so fascinating to think about that. So if we step up with the courage and we're willing to be vulnerable in our interactions as a way of showing up, and knowing that vulnerability, as you said, is not anything. It's not good or bad, and not putting a judgment on that. We just are choosing to show up a certain way. And I think that goes to the whole judging thing overall, is the labels we put on things, and stopping in that moment when we're doing that and observing that we are putting these labels on things, and there's nothing to label. It just is. Mm-hmm. And we come to that realization. That's a big deal.
Mm-hmm. And if you think about that from a behavior science, brain science place, it's that tracks in the snow piece, right? The fresh snow, you're going to go out with your cross country skis, and you're going to make fresh tracks in the snow. The next day, there's no further snow. You go out in the same tracks. It's easier to glide through those tracks. You do that for 3 days in a row, and all of a sudden you're flying down your trail because the tracks are smooth and open and available. That's the same thing that happens to us as people, right? That's why the statement of we can't change is not a real statement. So when we let go of the judgment we put on things, and we allow our experiences to be different, that will make the next experience different. And that will make how you approach the next experience different. So that's why in mindfulness, we use mindfulness in a place of slowing down and being present in order to be more aware, less reactionary, more deliberate. This whole piece is huge in that ability.
Yeah, it is. And one of the things that struck me is really the beginner's mind. So showing up every day with that beginner's mindset that we're curious and we're childlike and we're just beginning to go down this path. So for those of you who are listening to this and watching this, say, oh my goodness, how am I ever going to go to this place of becoming more mindful? And it really is, if you net all of this out and distill it, it comes down to showing up almost with childlike qualities with that beginner's mind, and just be really curious about the way heretofore you've shown up, and the way your thoughts have been, and the way you interact with people, and the way you lead. And that will give yourself a new perspective and a curiosity around these things that hopefully you embrace, and it just takes off from there.
Which allows growth, which allows development, which allows any shifting or even, it doesn't even have to be a shifting away from, it can be a shifting into, right? So that's what we're really talking about here. We're talking about shifting into our own capacity, our own ability, holding ourselves able. So if I can walk into a situation letting go of my judgments that I bring along with me, like the boxes that I like to carry on my trolley, I am holding myself able to be in the moment, to bring me to the moment.
And, one of the cool things that happens when we show up this way, there is an inherent lightness that will take over in our experience. And all this stuff that we've been carrying around, your luggage, as you were saying, will all of a sudden be external to us versus we perceived it to be internal and on our backs. And carrying these weights around 24/7. And if we show up with this beginner's mind and we're curious and we wonder why we just in this moment judged ourselves or someone else or something else, then there's this lightness that takes over. And that's where the happiness resides too.
It really is. And it's when we always advocate to start with ourselves. And the reason for that is when we can bring that lightness from ourselves outward, our judgments towards another or a situation is just a projection of us out. Yeah. So it's a mirror, right? People are mirrors to us, and we're projecting out our own judgments all of the time, which closes everything down. So if we start with ourselves first and looking at the judgments we hold for ourselves, and we bring in a little bit of that light to that. And the great way to do that is to slow down, be mindful, be present in a non-judgmental way. Then that will affect everything, because we will no longer need to project that certain thing on the other person. And it actually brings two people in the room instead of one person in the room and the other person just being a batting cage.
Exactly. Well, is there an exercise we can leave with the folks so they can incorporate this into their mindfulness practice?
I think one of the important things in this one piece is to get still, find our stillness inside. Because if we're trying to think our way out of this, it's a little bit difficult. So one of the things that I'd like to bring everyone through is to get into our stillness. And we're going to do that just with breath. There is a very easy way to get into our stillness. So I'm going to ask everyone, as the other calls, close your eyes, plant your feet on the floor. Make sure all of your foot is on the floor. Standing straight like you have a pole from coming down through the tip of your head, through your feet, so you're strong, your shoulder blades are back and down. You're breathing through your nose, so breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your nose. Do that 3 times. Feel yourself sinking into the grounding on the floor, sinking into your seat if you're seating. Breathe into it. And feel inside your body almost like an elevator, sinking down, down through your head. Every breath sinking deeper, down through your shoulders, down into your torso. And pause there and breathe into it. Allow the stillness that resides there. Allow the space. Breathe into the space in your torso. Feel yourself there. Every breath, you're opening yourself up. More breath in your torso. Expansion. Depth. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes.
That was good. That was good. It's really helpful.
That's your place of solid grounding, strength.
It's a place we can access anytime we want it. Well, Jenna, thank you. We certainly hope this has been helpful for everyone that's watching this, and just put it to practice and don't judge yourself as you do so. So sending you best wishes until we see you again. Take good care.
Bye-bye, everyone.